Okay, so we have 12 different notes in Western music. This is referred to as the 12-tone equal temperament system. I prefer to call it just the 12-note system. And it just means that the octave is divided into 12 different steps, 12 equal steps. All of these steps in blue right here are different notes, so that creates the 12 different notes in the system. Now, what is an octave? Let's say you're playing or singing the note A. An octave means that starting on that A and counting that A is going to take you 12 steps if you're moving in one direction, back to back, to get to an A again. When you get to that A again, it's going to be doubling its frequency, so it's going to sound higher, but it's going to be the same pitch. That's an octave. Now, before we continue and learn all of the notes in the system, I'm going to teach you the two most important relationships you need to learn as a music theory student, beginner music theory student. These are half steps and whole steps. A half step is the smallest distance between two notes in the 12-note system. For example, if I'm on this location, going up a half step means to go up to the next available note in the system, and to go down a half step means to go to the previous note in the system. Okay, so it's relationships that are back to back. A whole step is essentially two half steps. If I'm on this location, going up a whole step means to skip the next note and get to that one, and going down a whole step, same thing, to go the other direction. That's all half steps and whole steps are. Now that we know that, I'm going to get rid of this so we can start actually learning the notes in the system. The first few notes I'm going to teach you are called the natural notes. And these are 7 that follow the letters of the alphabet from A to G. Then we go back to A. There's no H. Okay. If all of these notes were back to back in the 12-note system, so you remember the graphic I was just showing you, it would look something like this. In this case, we would say, etc., we would say that they're all apart by half steps, because we understand, again, that a half step is the smallest distance between two notes in this system. However, that's not the case. Some notes are going to be separated by half steps, such as is the case with B and C and E and F. You have to memorize that B, C, and E and F are always going to be apart by half steps. What that means is that in that graphic, if B is located here, C is always going to be just the next note ahead. And if you're on C, the previous note is always going to be B. So there's nothing in between these two notes, because a half step is the smallest distance between two notes in the system. Same for E and F. If you're on E, the next note is an F. The previous note is an E. There's nothing in between them. Okay. Between all of the other notes in this sequence of natural notes, there's going to be a whole step. Because there is a whole step in between those notes, we have to assume there is a mystery note in between them. For example, if A is right here and they're apart, if A and B are apart by a whole step, they will look like this in the graphic I was just showing you, because a whole step, again, is relationships that are not back to back, specifically to half steps, like I was showing you. So we have to find out what the note in between them is. Okay, and that's going to be the case for all notes that are apart by a whole step. So, in order to do that, we have to learn about accidentals. So accidentals look like this. One's called a sharp and one's called a flat. All they do is move notes up or down. A sharp, it's always going to move a note up a half step, and a flat is going to move it down a half step. For example, if we are locating notes on our 12th note system here, let's say we have a note called X on this location. This is called X natural, to be specific, right? Because it has no accidentals. If I put a sharp on it, the sharp is going to have an effect on that natural note of moving it up a half step. So X sharp is located right there. And if I put a flat on that X natural note, the flat is going to affect the note to move down a half step. That's all the accidentals are going to do. Now, with these tools, as you can see, we have notes that are apart by whole steps. With these tools, we can move them. For example, we could move A up a half step to find out what note falls in between these two notes. Same thing we could do with B. We could use a flat to find out what falls on that specific location. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to call this A sharp or B flat. And that way we get the note that is in between them. There's nothing in between B and C. We can't have a B sharp or a C flat because we're going onto each other here. There's nothing in between those two notes. At least in a practical sense, we don't want to use B sharps or C flats. Now we get to C sharp or D flat. Same thing here for D sharp and E flat. There's nothing in between E and F. Same case with B and C. Now we're on F sharp and G flat. And finally, we get to G sharp or A flat. So 7 natural notes, and now we have 5 of these that would create the 12 note system, the 12 different notes. What are these notes called? Let's go to that. We already know these are called the natural notes, and the other 5 are called the enharmonic notes. So what is enharmony? It's a sound that has 2 different names, but it's just one sound. Okay? So again, natural notes. So I'll abbreviate this. And then enharmonic notes. Those are going to be, the first one we got was A sharp and B flat. It's one pitch because it's in between the whole step, right? And that's going to create now a sequence of 2 half steps between A and B. But it's one sound that has 2 names. Then we get again C sharp or D flat. We got D sharp or E flat. Nothing between E and F. And now F sharp or G flat. Finally, G sharp or A flat. These are 5 enharmonic notes. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I want to show you all of the notes in sequence going up so that you can see the 12 notes in the 12 tone equal temperament system or the 12 note system. And that's going to allow us to define another important term that you might have heard called scale. So again, I'm going to write all of the notes going up from A to A, all of the 12 notes, and I'm going to use sharps just to represent the ascension of notes. Sharps again move up notes by a half step. So if we're going up, it's preferable you want to, represent that movement going up, because you could also use B flat right here, right? So save those to represent a scale going down in this case. So A sharp, B, C. We need C sharp here. Then we get to D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and finally A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are all the 12 notes going up using sharps. If I was going down, for example, from this A, this is going up, let's go down here. Again, same thing, but we're going to go down. So from A, we go to A flat, G, let's go to G flat, F, E, we get to E flat, then we're in D flat, trying to line it up, C, B flat, A. You can see our enharmonic notes here. One sound, two different names for that same sound. So what is a scale? A scale is a succession of notes. It could be any number of notes. In this case, we have 12 with a specific formula. What is the formula of this succession of notes? The formula is the distance between each of the notes in the scale. So we have our succession of 12 notes here. What is our formula? Our formula is going to be half steps, right? Because this is the smallest distance between each note. That's the smallest distance established in the 12-tone system. So we already have our notes, our succession of notes is 12, and we have our formula that creates our scale, and we're going to call it the chromatic scale. So you could create your own scale. You could pick 5 notes and you choose what distance you want to have in between those notes, right? As long as you start on the same note, you start on a note and get to that same note to end the scale, you could create your own scale. So a succession of notes with a specific formula. All right, so I hope you liked the video. That's it for now. This is my first time making content like this online, so please like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends. I'm going to try to keep making more content like this, talking about music theory in general. So until the next one.